Hi everybody, Dan Illman along with Mike Welsh taking a look at the final Breeders' Cup race of the two-day festival here at beautiful Santa Anita. It's the sprint. We're going 3/4 of a mile. Before we take a look at the field, remember to head on over to shop.drf.com for those Breeders' Cup player packages, all your favorite handicapping products, low prices, shop.drf.com. Here's the field for the Breeders' Cup sprint. The big name in the race, of course, is the reigning winner, Elite Power. Mike, this race doesn't seem to have a ton of early speed. Speedboat Beach is fast. Dr. Schivel is fast. Elite Power's tactical speed, though, puts them in great spots.
Yeah, I mean, there's speed in here. I mean, there are fast horses here. It is the sprint, but not the kind of speed you would tend to see. You know, you want to pick up the P, or you think you're going to pick up the PPs for the sprint. See a lot of ones in those early spots in their past performances, and there's not a lot of that in here. I mean, last year we had a very fast early pace, and I think that created the opportunity that Elite Power took advantage of. He came into the race in such super form last year on a big winning streak. He's not on that winning streak anymore, although he's close to it. Bill Mott told me he thinks he's just as good, if not better, coming into this race than he was last year. But he's concerned. He knows that the pace isn't probably going to be quite as swift as it was a year ago. He's just hoping that he says, my horse will break. He says he'll probably, get outrun early, be mid-pack or so. He said, I just hope he has some daylight in front of him when they start his run, probably around the 3/8 pole.
And the lack of a blistering pace might work against a horse like the #1 Nakatomi, who figures to offer good value for Louis Saez and Wesley Ward, but is a horse that is pace dependent. He's basically a one-run closer. It was a good effort last time out in the Phoenix Stakes. This looks like a tougher spot and a tougher race flow.
Yeah, I believe that he's a little bit in over his head, maybe a level, one level lower than the best of these in here. The rail draw probably not going to affect him that much because he's probably going to drop back to the rear of the pack. He's got Louis, that's a big edge. He's got Wesley Ward in his corner. But I think it's a tall task for him to even maybe hit the board in this spot.
The #2 is Dr. Schivel, and this horse took one of the worst Breeders' Cup beats we've seen, boy, in 2021, where he had the lead going down to the wire and a fast-closing Aloha West nailed him. This horse has battled his way through various physical ailments. He's been nothing but consistent. Here's his most recent race, the Santa Anita Sprint Championship. He saved ground while pushing the pace every step of the way. The trip was there for him, but he always showed his heart and determination.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a tough horse his whole career. No telling how good he could have been and how much more he could have on his earnings if he had stayed sound the whole time. But he's in good form now. He loves the racetrack here. He's going to be well placed tactically. It'll be interesting to see how the early running plays out. The break is so important here. Bob Baffin has emphasized that with me every time I talk to him about this race. It's the break, the break, the break. And Dr. Schivel is going to be part of the early running. It'll be interesting to see if one of the other speed horses, Speedboat Beach or Gunite, I assume we're going to see them up there too. In my mind, I think Speedboat Beach is the fastest. We'll talk about that when we get to him. But Dr. Schivel trained well. I loved his last work here. He's coming into the race on top of his game. Would not shock me if he won.
This isn't the first time we've seen Hoist the Gold in Southern California. He was here for the Bing, he was here for the Pat O'Brien, and he really didn't run very well in either one of those races, although he did have a little bit of a trip, I guess, in the latter. He did return to form in this race, the Phoenix last time out, where he was a lot closer to the pace than he was out here in Southern California. He got the jump on them turning into the stretch, and he scored. It was a very nice inside-out ride from Johnny Velazquez. Is this horse all of a sudden for real, or was that just race tailor-made for him?
Yeah, it's hard to say. He actually got in a little trouble early on in that race. He rushed up, had a steady back, and then came around. He did wind up in perfect position and was able to hold on at the end. You look at his past performances, he jumps up with a big race every now and then. The last time he ran a big number was in the Churchill Downs sprint when he was second best behind Cody's Wish. Never a threat to the winner at any point, but he did run second. And then he regressed quite a bit. They went up to New York for the Metropolitan, totally overmatched there. Came back with another good race, tailed off again. I don't know if that race at Keeneland, he seems to like that racetrack. I just think, like Nakatomi, the two of them were coming in off that nice effort in the Phoenix, but one notch below these, I believe.
3 Technique is the number 5. He'll be a big price in here. Cutting back in distance after running third against Zozos, who we'll see in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. That was the ACAP. For his first start off a several-month layoff, it was a solid performance. I've always thought that maybe 3/4 of a mile, though, was a bit sharp for this horse, especially against top-class runners.
Yeah, he's got, he's held his form well over the years. And he, in the right spot, he's been able to get the job done. But I agree with you, turning him back to 3/4 might be a little bit short, especially in a race where we've said the pace isn't likely to be that sharp. So another one, probably an outsider in the betting and probably an outsider at the end as well.
And hard to knock the number 6, the Chosen Vron. All this horse does is win races. He's riding an 8-race win streak coming into the Breeders' Cup Sprint, and the Calbred proved his mettle against Grade 1 competition last time out in the Bing Crosby. This was a strong late run. The trip eventually worked out for him, but this horse rallies in the lane, and he's going to be probably a solid price yet again.
He is, and he overcame a lot of trouble in there. In the run down the backstretch, he got steady pretty sharp back down on the inside, then made a second run and was able to prevail after a hard drive against Anarchist, who was supposed to be in the Breeders' Cup. Unfortunately, came up, suffered a little knee injury training last week for the race and had to come out. And of course, Dr. Schivel. I got to respect this horse a lot. I loved what I've seen of him training here. He does all his training on the training track. He just stands out there in the mornings when he works. And again, this morning, he blew out this morning down the lane and around the turn. Terrific. I think he's coming into this race really sharp. His trainer, Eric Krujak, said he likes to run fresh. He's stopped on him right after the Bing Crosby, said, I'm going to bring this horse in fresh to the Breeders' Cup, and he's done a great job getting him ready. I think he has a big chance at here if the trip works out for him.
I agree with everything you said. This horse is just a racehorse, and he's been handled masterfully by his trainer. Speedboat Beach, what an interesting career this horse has had, Mike. He breaks the track record in his career debut as a 2-year-old for Bob Baffert at Del Mar. You're thinking American Pharoah, Breeders' Cup Juvenile, Triple Crown Series. He shows up on the turf, and he was an okay turf horse. Then the long layoff. Then he comes back sprinting in the Santa Anita Sprint, and he ran great considering the layoff. I guess he's got to be on a send here, right?
I think so too. I think he is going to be the speed. I think if he gets loose in here, he's going to be tough to beat. A unique way to come into this race. When you when you think Bob Baffert doesn't have a horse for the sprint at Santa Anita, here comes Speedboat Beach almost out of nowhere. He was idle all year, shows up after a long layoff to almost win the Santa Anita Sprint Championship in a great effort. The one concern might be that effort off a long layoff, that hard race, dueling on the lead every step of the way, did it knock him out too much? Is he going to bounce off that race? Not from what I've seen here in the morning ever since. He had a great gate work, 2 works back. His last work, I almost gave him a maintenance mode. I don't think I've ever given a Bob Baffert worker an M for maintenance on our clocker reports. I'm tempted to do so on that last work because that's what it was. His previous work was so sharp. I think he just wanted to make sure he got around her and didn't do too much again. But outside post, Bob just says he needs to break. I think if he breaks, he's going to be loose on the lead and he's going to be hard to catch.
Elite Power, of course, is the defending champion in this race, and talk about 8-race win streaks. He had one snapped last time out. A good effort, though, in the 4-go behind Gunite, who kind of got the jump on him here, and he was down inside. He was trying his hardest in the stretch. He's a rock-solid horse. He's probably the horse to beat on paper. He's the deserving favorite, and no one in this place would be surprised if he wins.
No, absolutely. And if he gets the trip and he gets the right pace set up, he certainly had another big year. He's not coming in on a long win streak, but he's close to it. His last race was good. Pace made that race as well. Gunite got loose from him, but Gunite might not get loose in here, which would give Elite Power maybe the edge. I mean, they've run 3 times now this year. Elite Power's won 2 of the 3. Both of those were at 6 furlongs. The one time Gunite beat him was at 7/8. So obviously the horse to beat in here. If you want to take the short price again, a little more value last year in the Breeders' Cup with him. But what can I say? Bill Mock's coming in here with a strong hand in a lot of these Breeders' Cup races, and Elite Power certainly not the least. Maybe going to be the shortest price favorite of all the ones. Him and Cody's Wish.
Your point, very well taken, though, about the 4-go as we conclude our analysis with the number 9 Gunite. He got away with a 46 1/2 mile and was doing it so comfortably. There's no way that's happening for him in here. I guess if you wanted to make an excuse for his dull Parks Dirt Mile, this guy just doesn't seem like a 2-turn miler. He's going to be turning back to a distance he likes, and he's tactical enough to work out a trip, but Even if you aren't a 2-turn mile, aren't you supposed to beat Nimitz class at 1 to 5?
I would think so, yeah. I mean, the race was run on the slop, and you would say maybe that had something to do with it, but he ran great against Elite Power in the Vanderbilt in the slop, so you probably can't make that as an excuse. I don't know what the situation was. I think they're about as puzzled as we are as how he got beat there that day. But you know, Gunite does nothing but run big races,
right.
and I think it was great for him. I know Steve just was so happy when he was finally able to turn the tables on Elite Power in the Fargo like that. But he too cautioned. That was at 7/8. This is at 3/4. He loves his post outside there. He was tempted to run him back in the dirt mile, only because for a while it looked like he was going to run Echo Zulu in this race.
That's correct.
And he wasn't going to run the two of them against each other because of common ownership. So that was a possibility that he could have gone back in the dirt mile again. And then when Echo Zulu unfortunately had her injury and was out of the sprint, that made Gunite. I think Gunite, this is where he really wants to run him at 6 rather than mile. In a perfect world, the Breeders' Cup Sprint would be at 7/8, but it's not. But I think he's going to be a major player. I think he's going to be a forward factor. I don't think we're going to see him on the lead. I think we'll see him stalking from out there. Is he good enough to beat this field on his best day? Absolutely. He is a major player for sure.
Before we take a look at our topics, I want to remind everybody that the best buy in racing is Mike Welsh Clocker Reports, available at DRF.com. The most comprehensive look, not only about how fast they worked, but how they worked fast. Top pick time, Mike, where are you going?
Speedboat Beach for me. I just think, like I said, I see him getting loose on the lead. I like Chosen Vron for a price in here, and then Elite Power. I picked him third, but mostly because of the shorter price. You got to look for value, but I like Speedboat Beach. As long as Bob Baffert said, he just needs to break.
I respect the horses coming out of the Santa Anita Sprint as well. Speedboat Beach, Dr. Schivel, I have to use them on my tickets. If I had to go for a horse that may be fishing for a price, perhaps it's Hoist the Gold, simply because that last race might be an indication that he's coming into form. He'll be a good price, and he has tactical speed.
And Dallas Stewart always seems to run second in big races.
In gigantic races at big prices, so I'm hoping it happens yet again. Breeders' Cup Sprint concludes the Breeders' Cup portion of the 2-day extravaganza at Santa Anita, and we wish you the best of luck.